Welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle. Today we are going to continue on our podcast review of the Rule 1 Investing podcast with Danielle and Phil Town. And we are on number 6. Yay! I'm so excited. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Hear what they have to say. This one's a little bit of a shorter one today. So, I'm excited to get her done. Get her done. Why'd I do that? Oh gosh. Not that. Anything but that. I can do this. We got technical difficulties, but we're going to work through them. 1, 2, 3.
I'm Phil Town.
I'm Danielle Town.
And we're here to talk about money.
Mindfulness, how to think about your money, what on earth to do with your money.
Yeah, and how to invest the way the best investors in the world do it. And we're going to dive in on that today in a 4th or 5th, or wherever many are in the series.
We're very far in.
We're in there deep with Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner
deep.
at Berkshire Hathaway for many, many years, and considered one of the better investors in the history of investing. Charlie has a track record of about 20+% now for, 60 years. He's 90-some years old. And a couple years ago, he was giving a lecture, or rather answering questions for the BBC. And we came on this
He's much older now.
1-minute quote.
I mean, it's crazy how quickly he goes through them.
Yeah.
And we've now been talking about it for hours.
And the them he's going through.
Right, sorry, the them that he's going through are these principles of investing, I think he calls them. And there are 4 of them. We've talked about the first 3. So we're going to today talk about the 4th, which is all about the price of the company.
Basically what I'm thinking Charlie's doing is breaking it down into 2 chunks.
Yay!
The first one has 3 principles, and that is that if you want to understand, if you want to buy a wonderful business and you want to buy it on sale, the first 3 principles are understand the business, be capable of understanding it. The second one is to be sure it's got a big, durable competitive advantage, and the third is have good people running it. And then you can look at the value of the business.
Good people
Are you saying
management.
those 3 are kind of like the prerequisites?
Yes.
The
and then you
value.
figure out the price.
Yes. I don't think you can figure out the price without the first 3.
Yeah.
At least the first 2.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I often think, why am I going to waste it feels like a waste of time in some way to do all the research into the company and into the management and into how their business is structured if they're not at a good price right now, if I'm not going to buy.
Yeah, I think that's, sorry, I gotta make sure they're both ending at the same time. I think that's like really important is having these 3 prerequisites and knowing them really, really well. Because like we said, if you're following along with the book reading, you want to know that when you invest, you're investing very rarely, and you're investing in companies that have been around for 10 years that will be successful for the next 10 years and are going to really increase the amount of money that you're putting into them. So having these 3 requisites, understanding them really well, knowing how to look at a company and using them really well is going to really cut down on what companies you're going to buy, and it's going to keep you within like 10 to 15 companies that are really good for you, that you really understand, that you can watch close enough, that when they adjust and change, that you're not going to have any problem knowing this is the time for me to get out, this is the time for me to buy more. You're going to know exactly what to do. It's not going to be a question. And like, if you have fears, if it feels like too much, then you're not ready. You need to do more research. You will feel it. I promise you. I've heard it so many times, not only in the book, not only with them, but like, if you have any questions, ask them, figure them out, get it down so that way you know whether or not if the company is too difficult for you to understand, if it's something you need to wait on, or if you're right there and you're in the know enough, okay? It's really important to be in the know of knowing enough. It's like, learning how to surf. All right, let's do this.
Buy them right now anyway. It's like, why don't I flip these and do the price question first?
Well, yes, and a lot of people try to do that, right? They always are looking at price and trying to see something that's on sale. But we've got to be capable of understanding the business well enough to know what that future cash flow is going to be all about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I think if we get to it, we may have to talk a little bit about some of the differences in academic theory versus actual real world reality when it comes to the values of
academic
so
theory
let's
to reality.
Okay. And maybe after we hear Charlie, can we just talk
Theory,
about the fluidity
reality.
between the research part and the sort of less numbery part? And I'm thinking about it like, okay, well, maybe you do a little bit of both. Like, maybe it's most efficient to look at price, get a list of companies that have a decent price right now, and then say, okay, which ones are the ones that have the best management, have the best moat, that I understand. Then come back, maybe delve further into the price once you understand the company better, narrow that list down some more. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to be digging away at companies for a long time, and then they're not on sale, they don't go on sale, and you can never buy them on sale.
Yeah, it feels like you wasted your time.
But then, of course, you go over and just try to find companies that are on sale, and you don't know enough about them, you don't really know they're on sale.
So is there some fluidity there where you're kind of going back and forth between that?
Kind of, but not I wouldn't say
Not
so
really.
much that. I would say I'm going to teach you a really cool thing on how to take that shortcut.
All right.
But not now, later.
Okay, I just wanted to take a moment to kind of talk a little bit about this before he tells us our things. And I think the reason why, she's like, oh, what if like they never go on sale? I do all this research, I find these great companies, but then they never become within that lower price that is the right price to buy the company at. And some companies you can probably even say that about would be like Nvidia and Tesla. And the thing is that when a company becomes overpriced, the problem with buying into those companies, at least from what I've learned, is that eventually they're going to come down. It doesn't matter. Eventually they're going to come down. There's going to be a recession. There's going to be something that will happen. And that problem is then you've bought way up here. You bought way up here. And that is why we need the margin of safety, because if you bought way up here and then the recession's like way out here and it drops, you weren't paying attention because you're supposed to hold them for a long time and you think everything's going to be good. It's going to take years to come back up here. And then you're just starting at the baseline again and you got to wait. Is it ever going to get that big again? So I'm curious to know what he's going to say, because I want to know too, especially, but like my thought in it has been like the reason why you do it this way is because you're always going to want good companies that have been lasting around, and eventually they will always go on sale. And it might not be when you want it to be, it might be way longer, but that's why you're always looking 10 to 15 companies. You're always looking, you're always learning, you're always educating yourself. So I think it's important that you kind of follow the way that they have it set up, I'm just going to real quick read. Oh wow, you have a cupping video. Yeah, I do. It's important to invest at minimal to avoid hefty damage. If it works out, then invest heavy. Exactly. And I think a big thing about investing with like how much you're investing, it also relies on you don't want to invest too much of what you need, right? So it's like anything you invest, it should be extra. It should be like your fun money. It should be the money where you're like, I would have spent this on a vacation. I would have spent this on going out to eat. So if it is just a little bit, that's okay. But if you're, putting your life savings into this, those are things that, you really want to make sure you have a large safety of margin, and so why you don't want to buy overpriced companies. So if you're going to put that amount of money into it, you should never buy overpriced companies, even when you're like, this is the best company, everything looks so good, At least from what I've learned, like, fun money is okay if you want to do that a little bit of money here and there, but do not take that risk with the money that is meant to make sure that you're going to live a healthy life after retirement. Do not do that money with the money that is supposed to make sure that if there's a big problem, if everything blows up, that money is supposed to save you and keep you safe. That money needs to be put in companies that are for sure as close as you can with all the knowledge, and we have AI and computers and information and data, that there's such a large safety of margin that even when things explode, you're still going to come out on top. You're still going to make money. That is so important. But I'm still curious on what Tan's going to tell his daughter, what this secret is that he has, because I haven't really heard anything about ever leaving that. There's some tactics I've heard and learned about recently about how to use money to bet on if the company's going to stay at the same price, come up and down. He kind of has a way to do safety margin on that. And like, I think they're called bids and puts, right? And I've learned a little bit about that. But because the market's really volatile right now, I've told myself, no, it's not time for me to do that right now. I don't know enough to be in this volatile market doing puts and doing bids and all that stuff. But that is a tactic that they do use. They have a very particular way in safety margin, and that's something I think you should go and learn from them. I'm not educated enough to teach anyone that, but it is something that he does teach people, that is an alternative when prices are so high on everything else that you're doing. I learned my lesson when I lost $3,000 trying to learn how to day trade. And day trading is so questionable. The thing is you gotta know so much information, and you have to keep up with so much stuff that unless that is your life, unless you are a stockbroker and that is what you're doing and you get a paycheck whether you lose money or make money, is really not worth it for the everyday person. Oh yeah, in an instant. And because, as we know with Rule 1 investing, the reason why it can become so volatile is because people are not logical, especially brokers, which can control the majority of the stock market. Especially brokers are not logical when selling. What they have to maintain is a portfolio, right? They have to keep the portfolio looking good. So if things drop and their portfolio's looking bad, for their business, they have to sell and buy into companies that are going up, because that's the way it is right now for that, and that's just how it is for them. And because we allow brokers to control the market, and because brokers have to make it look this way, that's why it can be so volatile. If people took the money out of the brokers' accounts and brokers' hands, and we all did it ourselves, then the market probably wouldn't be as volatile, because people would know that they put their money in good companies that are going to do good things with it, that are going for the long haul. But instead, the majority of people give it to other people that have to make it look like they're making money, whether they do or don't. And that makes things very, very questionable. Especially stuff with President Trump coming out and being like, we're starting a war. And then people are like, oh, well, I don't want to be in the stock market while we're doing a war. And they buy out and they take all their money out. But then the big people see the drop and they put their money in and it goes back up. And so people are like, oh, everything's getting better. And they put their money back in. So it's super volatile because of that stuff too. So propaganda, news, what's happening in the world can really affect it. So as far as I know, he's apparently going to tell us some interesting new things. But as far as I know, the reason we learn the way we do by making sure first we can understand it, making first that it has good management, and first it has a good moat that before finding out price, is so that we're not buying into companies that are as volatile. Trading is a scam. First they give you profit, make you interest, then suddenly give you a loss and take away everything. It can be a scam if you don't know how to use it. It is true. Yeah, it feels like a scam if you don't know how to function with it. I agree. Which is why I've never really done it. I would rather make sure that I know exactly what I'm doing before I even try.
Oh, because I don't want to get into that yet. I know this really good shortcut that helps all of us figure out how to get onto good companies that are on sale, because we don't want to waste our time looking for companies that aren't. It's going to have those down.
Right.
But we'll come back to that. So
this is the constant question about doing your own investing. Is where do I find the time and how do I maximize my limited amount of time?
Thank God we have answers to these things.
Good. Okay.
It's really good.
I'm glad there's an answer.
Yeah, we do have answers. Yeah.
Thank goodness for Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I mean, Charlie right now is going to tell us 4 things that are really the secret to investing and the style of investing that has produced the greatest results over the last 80 or 90 years. So here's Charlie Munger. You ready?
All right. So here's Charlie. It's a minute long. He's going to go through the 4 principles for picking a company.
I'm going to slow it down for everyone.
Things that we're capable of understanding, and then once we're over that filter, we have to have a business with some intrinsic characteristics that give it a durable competitive advantage. And then, of course, we would vastly prefer a management in place with a lot of integrity and talent. And finally, no matter how wonderful it is, it's not worth an infinite price. So we have to have a price that makes sense.
The last one we're talking about today, price.
It's a margin of safety considering the natural vicissitudes of life. That's a very simple set of ideas. And the reason that our ideas have not spread faster is they're too simple. The professional classes can't
too simple.
justify their existence if that's all they have to say. I mean, it's also
4
obvious
things.
and so simple. What would they have to do with the rest of the semester?
All right. So if you're listening,
I love
it's
that they keep playing
obvious and simple.
Yeah.
Also obvious
Thanks,
and simple.
Charlie.
So
And
obvious.
it is when you're sitting on the other side of it and you've worked with this for a while, and it becomes really pretty obvious and simple.
He's 80. I've been doing it
isn't
since
to
he's
most of the
40.
world. That's kind of the problem.
It's not obvious to me at all.
It's not.
I got to tell you, the least obvious
neither.
part of it to the rest of the world,
Same.
particularly the academic world, that teaches your fund managers how to invest, is the part about we can't pay an infinite price. We have to have a fair price, or whatever Charlie said. What do you say? Fair price?
He
Yeah,
said it's not
a
worth
fair
an infinite
price.
price. The price has to make sense
Yeah.
and give a margin of safety, given the natural vicissitudes of life.
Exactly.
I love that phrase. I'm going to start using that in my normal everyday life.
The natural
I love it too, and
vicissitudes.
what I really love about it is he's saying something that is absolutely radical, and it just slides.
Okay, we're gonna write that down actually because I think that's a good moment right here. Is for price. We want to make sure that it's fair. What did I say? That it was fair and reasonable. Oh, and margin of safety. Those are. I like it. She's like the natural vicissitude. What does that mean? Like the natural like flow? Is that what that means? I can imagine. Vicissitude. This is. I don't know. We'll see. We'll continue.
It's by so gently, you know. It's like, say it again. What does he say exactly?
The vicissitudes?
Right before that.
He says that the price has to make sense.
Price has to make sense.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Which means
That's
that there has to be a margin of
there has to
safety
be a margin of safety
given the natural vicissitudes
the
of life.
natural ups and downs,
Exactly.
the ins and outs of life. Okay, so
And what I love about
Yeah,
that
I
is that he
was
says
right,
on
I
that,
guessed.
vicissitudes are going to come. And I think so often we're trying to ward against any of those ups and downs. We're trying to make it so that they just won't
yeah.
happen. But they will.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if
we
you look at the
can't,
market
yeah.
over time, and this is something I constantly
So
think
true.
about with investing, is that there's these giant macro forces that come into the market and make it go up or down. And it's nothing to do with any specific company, like 9/11. All the entire market dipped like crazy, and people didn't know
How
if it
would
was
we
gonna
know
come
that?
back.
Right.
We
The
didn't
Great
know that.
Recession we just had.
Right.
I mean, these are things that are happening
Couldn't
on a
have
macro
guessed
level
that.
that really aren't. You know, we can do all the research we want into the given companies.
yeah, and always on hindsight, it looks so
Yeah.
obvious. Oh, you should have invested in 2009.
Right, and like of course
Yeah.
we were going to come back after 9/11, but we didn't know that.
Right. And so what
Right,
really
right.
is interesting about Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and I really think quite a number of investment managers who manage money in this way, although with a massive minority, almost all of us were buying stocks in 2009. This small group of what I would call
Sure.
Rule 1 investors for Warren Buffett's
Are
Rule
you
number
talking
one.
about after the crash?
Yeah.
Because the crash was 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in 2009,
Right.
the market bottomed, and you can see the track records on the guys that we really admire, and you can I went on CNBC and said I'm getting in March 2009.
I think that's a funny thing that he's bringing up right now because he's not saying like I don't even think he's going to say it here. He's not saying, "Oh, I guessed that this was going to happen." But I remember in 2008 or shortly before 2008, I remember hearing like first off, I was in high school, so the thing I was worried about was if I was going to get a touch phone. Like I remember like having all like the flip phones and the touch phones were all over the place and some of the kids were starting to get them at school. And so my concern at the time was where's my boyfriend? What am I going to do for lunch? What am I going to do this weekend? When am I going to get a when is my flip phone going to be able to get turned in for a touch screen? Like, that's what I was concerned about. And paying bills, of course. Like, my family was going through a tough time because my stepdad at the time had, like, lost his job. And my mom was paying bills with, like, loans and shit. So, but I was trying to ignore that because there was nothing I could really do about it. So I was filling my brain with other things like phones and shit, going to the dance. But I remember even then hearing online and hearing in the news of some guy, I didn't know it was Phil Town, but I heard of some guy that was like, we are about to go, like, there's going to be a market crash, like something really, I'm not sure about when, but it soon is going to happen. And I remember shortly after that, when my stepdad had lost his job, hearing about the market drop and hearing about like all this like terrible stuff happening. And like my family wasn't in the best situation. We were always kind of broke and poor, but like I didn't see much of a change in the world. Like I didn't see people stop buying stuff. I didn't see people stop eating or spending money. I didn't any of that. Actually, within this time, I think my parents somehow paid for like an Xbox 360 Connect, and I didn't know how they did that for Christmas. I was like, you don't have a job, you barely have a job, we haven't been going anywhere like at all. How did we just get this Xbox 360? So it's not like people stop spending, and even when people have zero money, they find a way to buy the things that entertain them and make them happy. So it's very interesting to like look back at that time and to know like what was going on. I look back and I'm just like, that's crazy that it was this guy on the TV, this man who called out the 2008 crash, and then now he's sitting here talking about it. Not like he's some amazing prophet or anything. He's just like, yeah, like I remember like thinking, this is the time to buy in. He's going to say something about being on TV because I remember him being on there. I remember seeing him on the news. It's so insane. It's so insane.
fine. And it looked, on hindsight, it's the obvious thing to do, but nobody did it. Just a handful of investment managers did it. And there's some real reasons for that. And we're going to get into that in this podcast as we go along. Over the course of this podcast, we're going to talk about that a lot because it's fundamental to understanding how to protect yourself from the natural vicissitudes of life.
The natural vicissitudes.
Because most of the people out there who are investing money don't think you can protect yourself from the natural vicissitudes of life.
And it is hard. It's a lot. It's difficult.
Massively diversify.
Diversify.
Indexes across multiple indexes. Literally thousands of stocks.
That's so true. I hear that all the time.
That's the way to protect yourself from the natural vicissitudes of life.
I have to say,
Charlie's not going down that road.
It's never made sense to me because if the whole market is going down, you're going down.
You're going down.
And I think that's not wrong for most people. I think for most people who are too busy in life, having kids, having all the life stuff, I think for the majority of the time in the world, having an index fund, especially one that brings back 10 to 15%, maybe even 20% if you can find one, because nowadays they can be run by AI, so no one's paying attention to them, so maybe they can use that. What is that? Because AI tracks what is it called? You can do it, Leah. It tracks data and finds, when you see things that are similar. Can't think of the word for some reason, but anyways, it does that, and so I'm sure you could probably find ones that do better now, that especially when they use AI. But nonetheless, like they're saying right now, once things start going down, you better remember to pull your money out so that you don't lose everything you just built. And that can be difficult if you're so focused on life and everything, you might not even pay attention and realize that that's happening, which is why I think it's more important that if you can and you want to, you should really learn how to invest on your own without the index funds and without a broker.
You're diversified. I just don't get it.
Well,
I feel like I'm missing something on the diversification argument.
Well, Warren Buffett said that diversification is for the ignorant. And if you don't know anything, you have to diversify because you can't tell a wonderful company. You don't understand anything. You don't know if it's got good management. Does it have a durable competitive? You don't know any of those things. You don't know what's
isn't the diversification argument that there will be some sections of the market that go up when other sections go down?
No. The diversification argument is that it falls on two major theses. One is that the market will always go up in the long run.
Yep.
So that solves the problem of, it's all going down at once. Yeah, but eventually it goes up.
Yeah.
So that's the first argument. And the second one is that nobody can beat the market.
Yeah.
So the only rational way to invest is to put your money in an index and
just
people
go with whatever the market's doing,
because eventually it always
apparently
goes up.
they can.
But that idea that nobody can beat the market flies right into the teeth of the fact that these kinds of investors do beat the market, and they've been doing it for decades, consistently, endlessly.
New ones that do.
Crushing it. If you put $10,000 into the stock market in 1960, today it would be worth $500,000 or something, give or take. If you put $10,000 with Warren Buffett in 1960, today it'd be worth about $40 million. So the difference or Charlie Munger, or Bill Ruane, or a whole number of other ruler-type investors, people who follow the idea that your main focus of investing is to not lose money. Which is Warren Buffett's rule number one of investing. Don't lose money.
Don't lose money.
Man alive, we've got to deal with this before we even start talking deeper into what Charlie's saying here about we can't pay an infinite price.
Right.
And what exactly did he say?
I'm going to say can't.
He said it's not worth an infinite price. A price has to make sense. And then it has to give us a margin of safety that protects against the natural vicissitudes of life.
A couple of things. First, it has to make sense. So Charlie Munger, who's incredibly rational, and Warren Buffett both think that a price needs to be rational or make sense when you buy a stock. Because they look at buying a stock like buying a company. Same thing. If you're buying a company, it has to make sense, the price that you pay. So we need to talk about what does that mean?
Yeah, it sounds like you have to understand what you're getting for that price.
Yeah, because
you got to understand what you're getting for the price.
Or diamonds, or Picasso, or a real estate deal, land in LA or something. I don't know if they say the price has to make sense.
Yeah.
Because how do you make sense out of those prices? How do you make sense out of a $21 million Picasso painting?
Well, it's just a market price.
It's a market price. It's just what the last guy paid.
Yeah, true. And what the next guy will pay.
What the next guy will pay, right? But businesses aren't priced like that. Businesses aren't priced like that because they are a unique asset group that
they change.
You buy with money. And what you get for it isn't the joy of owning a Picasso on your wall. What you get for it is money.
Money for money.
And the joy of knowing that your values are being perpetuated in the world, right?
You're employing people.
See our earlier conversations.
Exactly.
But that's incidental.
It isn't actually for the people who are starting the business, but from a person who's investing in a business.
Okay.
Ultimately, you have a lot of choices that will meet your sort of esoteric requirements, right? I want to be in a business with somebody I like. I want to be in a business that's helping the employees grow in their lives and is giving them a fair wage in exchange for what they're doing, and it's helping the environment, and it's all these things which would be important to me in any business I own.
Right.
And I can own any business I want.
Right.
True.
So there's one more thing, and that's how
any
much
business,
am I going to pay for this?
Whatever business you want.
And with all these other asset groups, that is not easily arrived at other than what's the market price.
Right.
And what Charlie is saying when he says it has to make sense is something really profoundly different than it's whatever the market price is. He's saying, I don't care what the market price is. What I care about is, does the price make sense? And what he's referring to is this very important concept about owning a business, and that is that the value of the business isn't just whatever the market's paying.
Fair.
The value of the business is really just related to some present, whatever you're willing to pay today to get the cash flow that's coming off of that business
Right.
for the next bunch of years. Okay, so that's a really important point, which we got to come back to. But I want to go to the other point he's making. So the first really incredible point is that a business price has to make sense.
Right.
And
Makes
the only way it
sense.
makes sense is to pay
Be rational.
something reasonable for the amount of cash that's going to be thrown off of this business in the
Right.
future. And the second thing he's making is, and because of the vicissitudes of life, we need to buy it cheaper than that.
Ooh, yeah.
Cheaper than a price
True.
that makes sense.
True.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to
So
buy it on
what
sale.
Charlie's sneaking in there is, we want to pay a price that makes
I'm gonna
sense.
make that buy
But
on
to
sale.
us, it's probably needs to be less than even the price that makes sense.
Lower.
In order to have a margin of safety against the vicissitudes. And a margin of safety just means that I might be wrong about what's coming down the road in the near term. This will really bounce this business around a lot, and the cash flow that I'm expecting to get in these next few
On
years
sale.
doesn't appear quite as large as what I thought it would. And so I'm going to wish I paid less money than the full retail value of the
True.
business.
Yes.
So I want a margin of safety.
Margin of
So we can
safety.
get-
Ooh, I'm gonna
we're
say
gonna
that
get way
next
into
to
the
on
weeds this in
sale.
these podcasts
Margin of
About
safety.
what do they mean by that kind of margin of safety? But right now, I think it's really, really important to talk about something that is a fundamental paradigm of the way
Ooh, a
the
paradigm.
stock market works.
Okay.
Before we go quite there,
We're
can I
going
just
to
ask
take
you
a
a
break
quick?
and go to our
Having a break.
How much of a margin of safety does Charlie use? Do you know?
Well,
I think
yeah,
it's like
roughly, because
10%,
I know what
15.
these guys pay for businesses over time. Essentially, what these guys are trying to do is buy $10 bills and pay $5 for them. So they're
So he wants to get it for half of the price that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yes, and that's what he says. That's what Charlie would say would be that would be a fair price.
Okay.
A fair price.
A fair
Now,
price,
to put
half
that into
off.
Context,
Okay.
It's not being bad guys. What they really want to do, Buffett and all these other guys who invest like this, what they really understand is they're just buying a business. And they don't have to buy shares of a public company. They can just go buy a private business, and they do it all the time.
Right.
You know, dozens and dozens of private businesses.
Right. But
Private
we
businesses
can't.
typically
We
sell
don't
for
got
about
that money.
half of what a public business would sell for. So when your Uncle Steve sold his business, he sold it for about 9 times the earnings of the business. But
Okay.
the company that bought it was selling in the public market for 18 times the earnings of the business. And so the moment they acquired the earnings from Steve's company, they doubled the value because those earnings were then valued at 18 times earnings. So
Okay.
it's really interesting. And that's what Munger and Buffett and these guys want to do. They want to buy a public business at a private business price.
Okay.
And so we have to buy in the public market, and therefore we have to recognize that the market has this value of liquidity.
Liquidity.
And one more value, really important on a public market, is that the information about the company is much more rigorously required to be told to the, yeah, now you know how deep they get into the weeds on that one.
Right.
So private businesses, you can have skeletons in the closet, maybe you can get away with it. Public businesses, you can go to jail if you don't expose the skeletons.
Yeah.
And for those two reasons, the liquidity and the vastly more information that's available
Don't go to
you
jail.
make it more valuable. And it's about 2 to 1, roughly. So, but
So moving back to the markets that you were going towards.
yeah, so this is the key thing, is that the implication that Charlie's telling us here is that you can buy businesses with a margin of safety.
Right. You can buy
Good
them.
point.
Oh,
Right.
Wait a
You
second.
can buy them.
There's a
yes.
little problem with that, because academic professors basically have come up with a theory of the markets that started back in, probably before the University of Chicago, but certainly the University of Chicago back in the late 60s, early 70s, with Richard Fama, came out with this idea called the efficient market hypothesis, which basically says that all of the prices in a market that's very, where all the information is out there and is very liquid and has thousands of people investing and trading in it, the prices in that market are efficient. That means the price of a thing is the value of the thing. So they kind of basically
Price
take
of
us
the
over
thing is the value
to
of the
pricing
thing.
businesses the way you price gold or real estate or Picasso. It's the value of the thing is whatever people are willing to pay. That's it, plain and simple.
Right.
And since
Period.
everyone is rational, very, very rational in the stock market, all of the people who are trading most of the money in the market are graduates from Harvard,
They're
and Yale,
not.
and Wharton, and Columbia, and they're very, very smart and brilliant people. All of them
They
the
are
valedictorian of
smart,
their class
yes.
in high school, and then they became the valedictorian of their class in college, and then graduated magna cum laude, and then they went to business school and were #1 grad, and then they got into Goldman Sachs program, and they were the best guy at Goldman, and then when they're 29 years old, they get a fund.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying they're smart?
They're really smart. They're smarter than me. Okay, you've been to those colleges, so okay, fair enough. You're smart too, but these guys, you know these guys. You went to college with these guys. I ask you, are they smart?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, they're really smart. Okay, so
Yeah.
the first thing we got to recognize is really smart people don't do really dumb things, theoretically.
Well,
Do you
that's,
think
that's
they do?
largely.
Theoretically.
I think smart people do dumb things all the time.
Ah, that would be a crack
Yeah.
in the little theory here.
Not at all. They're still smart. Is that the theory? What's the theory that
The
we're
theory
talking
is they
about?
don't do dumb things.
Oh, who has that theory?
That's the theory of efficient market. The efficient market theory says really smart
Efficient
guys
market.
are all rational and don't do dumb things. That means they're not going to
Yeah,
sell
but that's
you
not
something
true.
for less than it's worth.
That's not true.
They're not going to sell
That's
Charlie
not
and company
true.
with a margin of safety.
Lies.
Because that would be stupid. If it's worth $10, how is Charlie going to be able to buy it from a smart guy for $5?
For
why would the
half
smart guy
off,
sell it to him
yeah.
for $5?
How?
He's not going to do that.
Why would he do that?
But you know these guys.
Never.
don't you?
But
You
he
think they make a mistake?
does.
Well, I don't know if I think it's a leap to
Of
say it's a
course.
mistake. Maybe
Really?
there's different goals there.
Well, why would there be a goal that would cause me to sell something today in a fully liquid market for a lot less
I
than
don't know,
it's
but I
worth?
doubt, to be clear, I don't know much about efficient market theory. I doubt that it's based entirely on smart
Ooh.
people making constantly correct
But we have
decisions.
gone through
Is
it
that true?
a little bit, so
totally
interesting
true.
she doesn't
It's-
know.
I think
It's
it's
just
probably
basically-
more about, again, have not read it. I think it's probably more about the market evening out various decisions by thousands of people and saying at some point this becomes efficient because someone is willing to purchase a stock from another person at this price, and that must be efficient. That's my guess.
Well, let me
No.
just add one
That's
thing
not
here.
the-
and that is
that's
that
not it, though.
The idea that these guys would get emotional isn't allowed in this theory or in this hypothesis. In other
Exactly.
words, emotion doesn't come into it. So what you're saying is lots of different people would find different ranges of prices, and it would all settle into a basic area, fairly narrow, which is today's price, and that would be a rational price. That's their basic argument, exactly. But
is
no
it?
part of that argument says that people get emotional and scared or greedy and make a decision based on
Exactly.
fear or greed rather than
But people
a value
do
of the business.
all the
They're just scared.
time.
And so they're bailing, or they're really greedy and they're jumping in.
Well, they must have
Exactly.
an explanation for that. Like what happened during the Great Depression, the crash in '29. What was their explanation for that?
Fear, massive fear based
So they
on.
use fear as an explanation, but you just said that fear is not included in the theory.
It isn't. In that theory,
Exactly.
the value of those stocks was on the market whole was at 400 one day in 1929, and a year later it was at 50, and that was the value. Somehow the value of American businesses went from 400 to 50 in a matter of a
400
year.
to 50.
All right, and they have to make up this
Yeah.
elaborate framework in order for that to make any sense if you don't include fear. Right?
Right.
In other words, that somebody would, out of fear, sell something at a far lower price than it's really worth.
Okay, so you clearly think efficient market theory is crap.
Total crap.
So let's start
It's
at the beginning.
bullshit.
Maybe you
It's
explain
bullshit.
why
I
it's crap.
agree.
Okay, so here's why it's crap. Warren Buffett says it's crap. Charlie Munger
The
says
end.
it's
All right,
crap.
let's back up and go home.
So my first line of is to appeal to authority. Right? So I'm going to anchor
Okay,
my argument here in what these
fair.
guys have been saying for 50, 60 years. And that is that the
And they've been
market
proving
in the
that it's
long
wrong,
run
too.
is efficient. It's going to get you prices that are the same as values.
Mhm.
But in the short
Market
run,
in
it's
the long run is
emotional.
efficient.
That there's a lot of emotion that
Yeah,
gets involved
volatile.
in day-to-day trading or
We
month-to-month
know that.
trading that
We
goes
see
on in
that.
the market. And when a predominant emotion begins to kick in, like fear or greed. So fear in 1929, fear in 2008, greed in 1999, right? Greed
Fear
in
right now,
1928. When there's a
2026.
predominant emotion, it can overwhelm rationality. People do
Yes.
really dumb things under the sway of powerful group emotion.
True.
And
Fa-
in that
true, very
environment, the
true.
market in a short run
Happening again.
becomes what Ben Graham called a weighing machine.
A weighing
Sorry, excuse me, a
machine?
voting machine. It just is. He said in the
A
long run it's a
voting
weighing machine. It's going to weigh each stock properly. It's going to give you the right value. But in the short run, it's a voting machine. It's an emotional thing that's just, we're all putting in our emotional vote, and the value of a company can be who's the scared, most afraid person out there with the biggest portfolio can set the value of the business, according if price is value.
You just said something interesting, which is the biggest portfolio can
Yeah.
move the market.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, the market has
Mhm,
become
and it
a place
does.
where there are a relatively small number of very, very big portfolios. Today, 85% of the stock market is managed by a few thousand institutional fund managers who run mutual funds and
that's
pension
true.
funds and banking funds and insurance funds. And as a
Mhm.
group, they're holding about 85% of trillions and trillions of dollars.
Wow.
And they're
Yeah,
investing in
our
some big,
dollars.
huge blocks that move the market wherever they're moving that money. And so what
Which
this
is
so-called
ridiculous.
rational market that's very efficient is all about is the emotions of a few thousand New York traders who could get very scared
Yep.
if there's an event like the financial meltdown from real estate bonds
They
that create a
drop
lot of
it
emotion
all.
and suddenly
Sell,
companies
sell,
that have
sell,
nothing to do
sell,
with that,
sell.
nothing to do at all with the finance side of the world or bonds or anything. Those companies are being sold
Mhm.
off at at half of their value.
Well, I mean, I take your point. I think it sounds a little simplistic
Gone.
to say it's all emotion. Everyone's acting constantly on emotion. Like,
Well,
these are people who have massive amounts of research and numbers and
but
data
we're
about the
emotional
companies they're
people.
investing in, and probably
We're
the reason
emotional
the companies that had
human
nothing to do with real
beings.
estate started having a price go down is because the whole economy was tanking due to the real estate problem, and they knew that. I mean, I don't think that, to go back to your earlier point, these are intelligent people.
That's what's
I don't think
happening
they're
with
just
gas.
screaming and running around in the
Oil.
hallways and then shouting things like, sell everything,
No.
you know?
But still, they
Well,
are
you're right.
in
I mean,
their
I'm sitting there thinking,
brains.
yeah, okay, I don't know
right?
if they were running around screaming. They do throw themselves off buildings occasionally, so you know that the emotion is definitely there. I mean, people were jumping in
Yeah, they do.
1929, right?
I know.
So, I mean, you got to think, really,
Yeah.
if you've spent your whole life being the smartest guy in the room, and suddenly your portfolio is going down, and you're afraid that you're
Right, well,
not gonna
there's
get out.
information that you didn't have that you now have. And that's terrifying, right? I mean, we started this out saying the most important thing is to know what you don't know, and the most difficult thing is to
Right.
know what you don't know.
Yeah, true.
So these are people who
Right.
have done all the research and think that they've made a good call, and it's holy crap. I did not make a good call
I
because
did not
here's
make
this
a good
new
call.
information.
Yes.
That's
It's
terrifying.
not that
That's
they didn't
emotional,
make a good
but it's based
call.
on
It's
information.
that
based on
things
data, based on
changed
new
because of the
Yes.
data coming in.
velocitude of the world.
So why would this not be rational?
Right.
Okay.
I guess maybe I'm saying the emotion seems rational to me.
Right. I understand. The emotion seems
But it's still
reasonable when they have
emotion.
of fear when there's something to really be afraid of, right?
Right, and
But
it's
it's
to be
still
confronted with
it's still emotion.
the very real realization that you've missed information.
Right. That new.
And that
well, it
threatens
wasn't missed,
that
it just-
threatens the rest of your
okay, let's say it's
assumptions.
missed. So here's the thing. What are these guys afraid of? That's the first thing that we need to understand is
Because they know.
if fear is there and they're afraid for a reason, what is the thing that they're afraid of? Right? Let's say with the meltdown in 2009.
Yeah.
Why were they selling everything? Why were they doing that? Well, one of the reasons is
Why
that
would they
a
do
lot
that?
of people were taking their money out of the stock market because it started to go down. So just the fact that it's going
Because
down
fear.
caused pension fund managers who have $50 million invested in this mutual fund to just take it out. Well, I don't want to be there when it goes down. And now we have to ask ourselves, well,
Yeah.
why not? I thought we were supposed to ride through these bumps. That's what they tell us. Just keep it in the market, long-term investing.
Right.
That's the way to go. Ride through the bumps. The market always goes up in the long run. So why would really intelligent guys from Wharton and Harvard try to pull their money out of the market as it starts to go down in 2008? Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting because they had to
Greed.
give their money back to their investors who were pulling out.
They had to give the money back to the investors who were pulling out. So
The
and
only
why
way to do that is to sell.
you have to sell. And if you start to
Yeah,
realize
okay.
that all of the big guys in the market, the California Teachers Pension Fund is pulling the money out because it doesn't want to be in the market when it's going down. This is
The
making
teachers
the
fund.
market
That's
go
the
down.
biggest one.
Absolutely.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So that drives a lot of fear if you're out of control and your investors are taking their money away.
Well-
Your kid might not go to the best school in New York next year.
And let's say your own investors are
True.
staying for whatever reason, but the 100 fund managers next to you have all of their investors pulling out. You know the market's going down because of that.
Right.
So you have to make decisions based on that, which
Right.
probably means selling. If you know the market's going down because everyone else is selling.
You're selling because
So that makes sense.
your time horizon is very different than Warren Buffett's and Charlie Munger's. And it's different because
Yes,
you
it's
as a fund manager
shorter.
can't control your capital. Your capital is scared money. It's now
It's
leaving.
everybody else's
And
money.
you need to be quicker to get the rest of it out of the market than the rest of the guys are, so that you can hold on
Right.
to this capital so it won't leave, right? Charlie Munger doesn't have to deal with that. Buffett doesn't have to deal with that. I don't deal with that in my own fund. So if you have scared money, which is money that's going to pull out on you based on what the market is doing because of unrelated things to you whatsoever, then you have to be
Right.
a different kind of investor than Buffett and Munger.
That sounds to me like it's rational, but not efficient. And
There you
it
go.
sounds to me like
That's cool.
the
Rational but
value
not
of a company
efficient. Okay.
clearly has no relationship to all of these people pulling out of funds. I mean, it has nothing to do with a given company down the road.
Chipotle Grill, 2008, going gangbusters, earnings better every year. And with the benefit of hindsight, earnings better in 2009, better in 2010, better. This whole meltdown had nothing to do with Chipotle Grill, okay? They're selling burritos.
Right.
And in fact, the worse the economy got, the more burritos they sold. Which would be irrational.
And
assumption,
burrito
right? People are going to
bowls.
stop going to Olive Garden and they're going to start going to Chipotle, right? That would make sense if you were rational.
'Cause it's
Now,
cheaper.
in hindsight, that's what they did. So why would people panic out of Chipotle Grill at the same time they're bailing out of Bank of America? You know, why? Those two things are complete. Chipotle had nothing to do with this meltdown
Yeah.
in the financial services industry.
That's true.
But
That's
what
true.
was happening is people were getting afraid of the stock market as a whole, and so they were pulling the money out of the whole
Ah.
market. So companies that had no problems
Right.
going on whatsoever had this cash flow going off into the future that you could estimate pretty accurately what the current value is. Those companies got lower and lower price.
You don't think that that's
Okay.
because investors started thinking people are going to stop buying overpriced burritos
No.
and start going to Taco Bell for underpriced burritos?
Well, possibly. But Taco Bell was going down too.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah,
way out.
everything.
Everything was
All
tanking.
of it.
And so you can see that immediately there's this idea that the whole market is efficient and price is value and price is equal to value.
Right.
It suddenly gets a little weird when
Okay.
you've got everything going down for something that's not an everything problem, right? Unless the whole world's going to stop.
Right.
Is the value of a company different than the price of a company?
Not the
That's
world stopping.
So let me answer this by saying that according to the University of Chicago, Richard Fama, according to Britt Malkiel at Princeton, according to basically
Right.
most of the academic community in the Ivy League in the 1960s and 70s, the answer is the value of a business is its price. According to Warren Buffett,
Is its price on the
Value of
public
business.
on the
market?
public market, that's its price is
Right.
value. That's critical
Price
to
is
understanding
value.
the
I'm
way the
gonna-
stock market works. Is that most of the people who invest your money in the stock market
Price
believe that price is
equals
value because they've been taught that as the
value.
paradigm of the way the market works for the last 40 years.
Belief
Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger
of
say something
paradigm.
very different. They say value, price is what you paid. That's all price is. Price is what you paid. Value is what you got.
Price.
So if you went out and you
Pay.
paid $150,000 for your car,
Value.
you just bought a new car.
What you
What'd you pay?
Oh,
you
gosh.
got.
I don't know. Some excellent
I'm gonna say
amount
Charlie.
that was less than they wanted me to. I don't know.
Was it less than sticker?
I actually don't know, to be honest.
Well, I hope it was.
You helped me with that one.
I'm pretty sure it was. So less
Rule
than
one.
So what if we just didn't know there was a sticker out there?
Slash
What if we
value
just paid
investing.
$150,000 for the car? We still just got the same car. We didn't get a better car because we paid $150,000 instead of $50,000. You see what I'm saying? In other words, you can pay $150,000 for a Picasso or $50,000 for Picasso, but if you pay $150,000 for a car that's only worth $50,000, you've made a big mistake. Okay. So
Yes.
now that's maybe even debatable on a car, but when you come to a business and a business produces cash flow, there's a pretty narrow value associated with the future value, or the future range of cash flow that you're going to get. You wouldn't be stupid and pay $1 million for a company that's going to give you just $10 a year in cash flow, let's say. Or let's go the other way. You wouldn't sell a company for $1 million that gives you $1 million in cash flow every year. Nobody would do that.
Right.
Not if we see that the cash flow is going on.
Because you're going to make more than the $1 million.
$1 million a year. Nobody would sell that for $1 million. They're going to sell it for $5 million or $8 million or $10 million. They're going to try to get more for it. So there's a range of real world value. And it turns out that in private businesses, it turns out to be about 7-8 times the cash flow of the company is a really pretty good deal.
Okay.
In public companies, it can be 13, 15 times the cash flow of the company is a reasonable deal in a public company. And so we know that from people buying companies and selling companies for hundreds of years.
To 15
we're not willing to pay an infinite amount, as Charlie says, an infinite amount of money for the cash flow of this business. It's just not worth an infinite amount.
Yeah, so what we need to know is what multiple we should be paying.
To sell.
Exactly.
And maybe we should move on to that in our next episode.
Okay.
That sounds like a big topic to me.
Okay, it is a big topic, and this whole concept is a really intense topic, and I think we got to spend some more time on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do
Yeah,
All right,
I like
thanks
that. All right. From the cash flow of it. All right, yeah, so we didn't get any real homework from that. It was just like kind of understanding. So maybe even look into the concept, the paradigm, do a little research if you want on, because I've done a little bit on what they believe I can't remember what they call it, but it's how they believe the stock market works, is that they think that it's rational, and it's not, but it's the belief that they do teach. So, check that out. Don't forget to check out the reading we did for Invested, and don't forget to come and hang out with us for reading the Berkshire Hathaway Charlie Munger's notes to the stockbrokers, letters to his investors. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell icon for the next time when you'll know when I'm going to post, and leave a comment down below. What was something that you learned from this podcast, or any of them from the ones that we've done, and what are you looking forward to in the future to learn from this? And until next time, guys. Bye.